Hello everyone, it's Becca from Becca Books and Bujo, and today I'm telling you about all of the books I read in the month of October. So I just want to be real with you. I don't feel like recording. I don't feel like reading. I'm in this weird slump, and but I'm here because I do want to get a video out, and I want to record the books that I read in October. But toward the end of the month of October, I didn't want to read. And it was kind of all due to one book, unfortunately, Kaikei, which I'm about halfway through and have just kind of stopped. It's now the 5th of November and just kind of putting a pause on that one because it's putting a damper on my reading. But let's jump back to October. I'll do some stats to start out with. I read a total of 10 books, which ended up being 2,988 pages. I read one contemporary book, one literary fiction, 2 fantasy, 2 graphic novels, but they were actually manga. My first foray into manga, so that was interesting. 1 historical fiction, 1 mystery, 1 romance, and 1 thriller. So I had kind of all over the board. And I should say my 2 fantasy were also graphic novels. They were the Lumberjanes. Anyway, the audience that these 10 books were geared toward, 4 of them were adult, 3 of them were young adult, and 3 of them were middle grade. Lastly, the format that I consumed them in, 5 of them were strictly physical, and 5 of them were a combination between listening and reading physically. My average rating for the month was a 3.5. So that's a little low. And this is really kind of weird. 10 books, 5 of them were 3 stars and 5 of them were 4 stars. So that's how we got the average rating of 3.5. Let's jump into the 3-star reads. I am just gonna kind of look at my reading journal to tell you how I thought of them, what I thought of them. So the first book I actually read, I don't have with me. Oh no, this is not the first book. This is my first 3-star. Okay, so this is Lumberjanes Volume 6, and this one's called Sink or Swim. This is by a few different authors, N.D. Stevenson, Grace Ellis, Shannon Waters, and Gus Allen, I believe are the original creators. So this just continues on with our Lumberjane gals. These 5 gals that we follow are at a summer camp, and this summer camp has some weird fantastical creatures in the woods, and so these girls always find themselves in some sort of trouble and having to fight these creatures. So this one focuses on some seals, some magical seals. So this one was just, I mean, Lumberjanes are always entertaining. This one was just kind of middle of the road. Then my next 3-star was The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer. It's funny because this kind of relates to Lumberjanes in that in this one we follow a group of students, young adults, who all met at a summer camp, at a fine arts summer camp. We mostly follow the main character, Jules, I think Julia, but she starts going by Jules at summer camp as she is brought into the group called The Interestings, and how her life completely changes from the experiences she was able to have with this group of kids. Most of the kids at this summer camp are well-to-do, well-off, come from rich families, whereas Jules came from single mother household. Her father had just died, and so she kind of is brought into this more affluent society. And so we follow her life and how, like I said, her life is affected by the experiences she had at summer camp and the people she met at summer camp. Then my next, I'm kind of going in a ranking order. So like Lumberjanes Volume 6 was my worst book of the month. Not that it was bad by any means, but we're going in a ranking order here. So then the next book was not my first manga ever. My first manga was coming later. It was a 4-star, but this was my second manga ever, Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. And this follows our main character. His code name is Twilight because he's a spy, but his name in most of the series is Lloyd because that is his undercover name character. He goes undercover to try to basically save the world and create peace between the East and the West. And for this case, he has to adopt a daughter and get fake married. And what he doesn't know is that his daughter that he adopts is a telepath, so she can read his mind, her mother's mind. And then the wife that he chooses, the woman that he chooses to marry, is an assassin. And none of them know what each other are. And so it's really funny. It's a comedic story, but then also some graphic scenes of violence. But it's interesting. It's cute, actually, this family that they are able to create. I've already continued on in the series in November, but that'll be for my November wrap up. Then we've got Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. I don't want to say much about this because it would give away a lot of the story, but this says there's more than one way to end a marriage. So you can imagine that this wife has ended her marriage. And it's interesting because there was a plot twist that she thought she ended the marriage in a way. And then she was convinced that, nope, her husband is back. And she was not planning for that. So that's kind of the mystery and thriller that we follow. She thought she had ended the marriage. In a way, if you know what I'm saying. She thought she killed her husband, and then there are all these signs that he's actually alive, and police are trying to find him and figure out what happened to him. She's convinced that she killed him, but then there are all these other signs that he's still alive. So very interesting, fun to follow, and it was just enjoyable. It wasn't spectacular. It was a little bit slow, but still an interesting take on a murder mystery. And yeah, I'm glad that I finally read it. It was my very first book of the month ever, or at least my oldest book of the month that I hadn't read. This was all the way from November 2020, so I'm excited I finally got to that. And the reason I got to it was from Krista from Books and Jams and Amy from Amy's Bookish Life. They hosted a readathon in October called Ketchupathon, where we read all of our book of the month. So that's why I got to this one, and I'm happy I was able to read it. My last 3-star of the month, which is a little bit of a disappointment that it ended up being 3 stars, was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Unfortunately, all of Lucy Foley's have been either 2 to 3 stars for me, so it makes me sad that I don't really want to read any more books by her. But for some reason, I just feel like each next book she comes out with has so much promise. Like this one sounded really cool because it was all in one building. This mystery, or this murder, took place here, and then we had to figure out who did it. It had to have been someone in the building, right? But we don't know who. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead. This focuses on our main character, Jess. She goes to live with her brother, Ben, in Paris. She kind of escapes her life in England. And when she gets to the apartment, Ben has disappeared. And so she is trying to figure out what happened, who either took her brother or killed him. She's not really quite sure, but she can't get a hold of him. She can't figure out where he went. His wallet was still there. All of his belongings were still there. So she knew something was wrong. So she kind of befriends the people in this apartment to figure out what happens. And it was interesting. There were some fun twists and turns. But again, just like mediocre. Middle of the road for me, unfortunately, which makes me sad. But anyway, another book of the month that I got to in October. Okay, now 4 stars. Here is my first ever manga that I read, and actually this is a stand-in. I read the first one. This is the second volume, but I read The Promised Neverland by Kayu Shirai. Again, I know this is the second volume, but I read the first. This is a manga series where there is this children's group home, and they're all ages like 0, new baby, to 12, and when they're 12 they age out, they get adopted. And these 3 like 11-year-olds, almost 12-year-olds, are preparing to be adopted out when they find out that there is something very wrong outside of this school, their home. Inside the home, everything's peachy, and they have a wonderful caretaker who they call Mom. She really cares for these kids, but outside of the home is scary. This is very graphic. I wasn't expecting that kind of like horror. It is horror, definitely, but it's still a very interesting story, and I want to know what happens to these three main characters, these 11-year-olds. So, like I said, this is the second volume. I will likely continue on with this in November. So that was a 4-star, very fun, and thanks to Katie Colson for recommending that series to me. And I saw it at the library, and I figured, why not? She actually recommended both Spy Family and The Promised Neverland. Not to me specifically. She is famous and would never probably talk to me or know that I existed. But I saw those mangas on her channel. Anyway, then we'll go to the other book that I don't have. I already returned to the library. This is Lumberjanes Volume 7, A Bird's Eye View. Again, I kind of explained what Lumberjanes is earlier. We follow our 5 gals as they go to camp, and this one, a giant bird steals some of the counselors and like leaders at the camp, and so the Lumberjanes have to distract the bird and get those people back. So that was a fun one. I don't know, I really enjoyed that one for some reason, so that's why I got a 4 star instead of just a 3 like the first one. Then the next book I gave 4 stars to was kind of a huge surprise. I had no clue I was going to read it, but I actually brought it up in my reading blog. I'll link that up above for the month of October, but that was The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. This one I had maybe heard of, mostly just like the movie Hugo, and seen it around, but never really had the intention to read it, especially last month. But it was on my in-laws' shelves, and we were playing downstairs. I was looking through their shelves, and I saw it, just started reading it, and got to page like 100 within 30 minutes. And so it's fun. It has like pictures that you follow the story, but then also words that you read, obviously. So this was really fun. Let me tell you about it. This was about our main character, Hugo Cabret, and he is a time turner, a clock turner. What is it called? What he does. He fixes the clocks, or like he sets them twice a day. For some reason he has to do that. Anyway, he sets the clock twice a day in a train station. He's taking over that job from his uncle. But he is also trying to fix this automaton that his father left him before his father died. Hugo, believes that his father left him a message through this automaton, that it would write a message once he fixes it. And so he does anything he possibly can to fix this automaton, including stealing. So he does whatever he can to fix this in order to get this message. He makes a friend along the way in a young woman named Isabel, and she actually ends up helping him solve this mystery of the automaton. And this was just ultimately really fun to read. It was quick, it was enjoyable, and I am looking forward to watching the movie. My mother-in-law lended me the movie too, so I can watch that sometime. So this was very fun, and excited that I found it randomly on my in-laws' shelves. Next, we are on to Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. This is a young adult. This was my first read of the month, and I got through it really fast. I was not even close to my slump whatsoever when I read this one, because I read it so quickly, inhaled it almost. This is about our young female protagonist, Madeline, and she has never set foot outside because she is allergic to the world. The bubble baby, they call her, and this is like a very, very unique disease that she has, but she has it, and so she has to live with it. She lives in a house in a bubble with her mom, and then her nurse comes in and out to take care of her. Luckily, her mom is a doctor, so her mom is able to care for her. She establishes a relationship with the new next-door neighbor, a young man, Ollie, and they start messaging on the computer and end up meeting, and she falls in love with this boy, and she decides that she is sick of living in her bubble. And then she gets very sick, and there's a crazy twist toward the end of this that I did not see coming. It was really, really fun and really cute. Their love was very sweet and pure, and established on just these messages that they were able to share over the internet. And just because there was that little bit of forbidden romance, it was just kind of fun and exciting to follow along. So that was Everything. Happy I read that one. I'm interested in looking into her other book, The Sun Is Also the Star. I'm seeing it on the back of here. Anyway, that's that one. And my best read of the month, still at a 4-star. I just was slightly disappointed because I wanted it to be a little bit more gut-wrenching, I guess, make me feel a little bit more. Anyway, that is Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. This is a series of letters from a father to his son. The father is on his deathbed with cancer, and he's writing letters to his son, explaining to him why he had such a difficult time accepting the fact that his son was gay. He used his experiences to explain why he treated his son the way he did, and we kind of just get an inside look as to his thought process behind not really accepting the fact that his son was gay. I really just wanted it to like make me break down and sob, and it didn't, unfortunately. It was still very sad and very heartwarming the way his father, I guess, bore his heart and soul out to his son and apologized for the way he treated him, but I just wanted it to be a bit more. So that's why it only got 4 stars. Let me see. There were some really great quotable moments. I guess one that I want to share with you is that a man believes that when he becomes a father, he'll love perfectly, but that isn't true. Love doesn't make us perfect. It makes us want to be, which I think just really encapsulates what it is to be a parent. You try to be so perfect for your child, and you hope that your love is perfect for them, but it's never going to be perfect. No one can be perfect, but the fact that you have that child to care for and love and nurture, you are doing your best. You know, you're doing your best to be perfect. So I liked that. Anyway, this was good. I am excited to discuss this with my book club. We read this for our, we'll read it at we'll talk about it, discuss it at our November meeting here coming up tomorrow. So I'll be excited to see what they think about it and if they can draw any more emotion out of it for me. Anyway, those are the books. Let's show you a stack because I had most of these books physically, so that's kind of fun. Ta-da! Here they are. These are 8. I'm missing the Lumberjanes, but these are the books I read in October. It started out strong and then just ended a little bit slumpy. I think I'm getting out of the slump. I read 2 books so far in November, and it's the 5th. One was a manga. That's kind of helping me get out of my slump because I can read them quickly. And then another was really fun, but I'll leave that for another video. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up on your way out. Comment down below if you have read any of these and what you thought of them. I'd love to have some discussion with you in the comments. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more content from me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.